All right, so if you have your image area, kind of the background of this sort of adjusted, and you've been working on cleaning it up, and we have our uh, layer mask gets selected here. One thing that happens sometimes is as you're clearing an area and trying to delete pixels behind it, the brush is just too big, right? And one way to go in is just to go in and adjust it up here. But another good way to do it is to go in and just hit the brackets. So the square brackets on your keyboard will make the brush bigger or smaller. So if you want to make the brush really small, you can kind of just tighten it down. You can kind of see how all of a sudden that edge is really, really hard, right? Really obvious that I'm working on tightening that up. So if you want to, you can make your brush a little bit bigger and maybe just adjust the hardness a little bit. And just go in and kind of like make that, feather that thing back a little bit. So one other thing to know is that if you mess something up, like if something is gets kind of screwed up, so like let's say I slip up and oh no, I've deleted some areas out of this that I didn't want to. What you can do is you can go in here to make sure your layer mask is selected and switch your black and your white down here, which sets the foreground and background. So now instead of painting with black paint on my layer mask, I'm basically going to paint with white, and I can basically put pixels. I can uncover the mask, so I can delete that mask off of there and put the pixels back where I wanted them to go. And if I go all the way up here, it's like, oh no, I just did that. But I can switch it back again, and I can just delete that out of there. Remember, you can adjust the opacity, the flow, if you want to kind of adjust how things are kind of looking. So once you get your image kind of set the way you want it to, and remember, this is like the hallmark of like craftsmanship in Photoshop, is when you do a good job of masking things, clearing them, like do a very subtle, good job of making things look right. And so like right down here, even in these eyebrows, if I really want those eyebrows to look great, I'm just going to keep zooming, right? It's going to keep zooming in there. I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to make the brush tiny by using my brackets. And I can actually go in here and just kind of get in there really tight. So this is really up to you, like how you want your image to look, like how dedicated you are, whether it looks okay having it kind of be soft and undefined, or if you really want it hard and with a really sharp edge. But most of the time, this is what makes some stuff looks like hack work and some stuff looks like professional work. Usually it's little things like this that people spend their time kind of adjusting. And so again, I'm zoomed in really tight now, and so I can zoom out by holding down the Option key, or I can just double click the hand. This is a great trick. So if you double click the hand, it zaps you back out so you can see the whole image, which is a great little thing. So those eyebrows look awesome down there right now because I was zoomed in so close. Everything else looks fine. So once I have my image set like this, I'm pretty much ready to go on to the next stage of our tutorial, which is to put it into Illustrator. But just by way of showing you one more thing you can do, if you place another image in here, so let's say I go to File, place embedded, right, and I'll place something else in the background here. Load up. Let's see, what can I find really fast. Let's just say we're gonna stick a picture of the cat back there. I mean, because hey, why not, right? You can see that that's also been placed as a smart object. So if I enter that or hit return on that, it's going to do this. If I want to transform it, I can hit Command T or go up here under the transform command, and I can make the cat picture bigger, right? So if I want it to look like he's being, attacked by a cat, I could do that. I don't know. And now you can see, well, this one layer is on top of the other one. Well, all I have to do is just drop this layer down on top of that one, and you can see that now I've kind of knocked out the background, and I have allowed the image behind it to kind of exist back there. So you can layer 10, 15, 20 things in here if you want to. It's really up to you how you layer up and composite your image together. You can see there's a few little error areas in here where I didn't quite get that area blocked out. So what I would want to do to fix that would be to make sure I select my layer mask, get my brush out, right? And then I probably want to make the brush pretty big. So I'm just going to hit the bracket key till it gets huge, and I'm just going to paint everything out that's not that's not actually what I want to see. So and again, this little white halo that's around this is kind of a sign of where the craftsmanship comes in. So If I want to, I can just go back to my brush, make it much smaller again. And I can go in here and really tightly try to get in here and really tightly do this. And so there's just a million ways you can work with that. Again, if I make a mistake, I can hit Command Z. Don't forget about your history palette here too. If you screw something up, you can always go back in time that way, which is kind of nice. But I would go in here now and I would just really tightly try to fix this so that it looks great. And makes everything, just perfect. So these are kind of just a few ways you can knock out backgrounds. There are a million ways to do it. You can use the eraser tool. There's a background eraser tool in here that you can use. Again, but those things require you to rasterize your smart object, which may or may not be what you want to do. But again, these are the layers. If you ever want to see what something looks like without a layer, just turn the eyeball on or off. It'll give you a sense of how your image kind of looks with just that layer isolated alone in it. So that's the basics of knocking out a background using layers. You should work on this, get it all set the way you want it to, and then we're going to go up here to File, Save, and we want to go to File, Save As. You want to pick a place to put your image. You want to name it something that you actually want to keep, and then you want to hit Save. And there are all these options here like Photoshop, JPEG, TIFF. For our purposes, you want to make sure you leave it as a Photoshop file, which is going to be a bigger file. You want to make sure your layers are selected so it keeps our layers as is. But if you're ever just going to put something out on the internet, you wanted a small file, you could go to JPEG, click on that, click Save, and it'll bring up this dialog box which allows you to adjust the quality and stuff. And then it'll put a flattened image of whatever you see on your screen. Is going to put that as a JPEG and save it in a certain location. But you always want to keep the Photoshop file saved on its own so that you're able to go back and edit it if you need to fix something or adjust it or anything like that. So that's the basics of how to play in Photoshop with layers and things like that. Lots and lots more you can learn, but this will get you started.